Okay, whatever. Hi, I'm Brittany,
I'm Rachel.
and today we're gonna be talking about Where the Crawdads Sing and Look by Delay Owens. So, in the first chapter, we are introduced to the mother and Kaya and her whole family, basically. So, we find out that the mother has left them, basically abandoned them, and Kaya doesn't know how to feel about that. She saw like that her mom left with like these like gator heels or whatever, gator skin heels, and she found that kind of weird. Like apparently her mother leaving was like it was a reoccurring thing happening in their lives, but this time for some reason it felt different. And we also found out that the mom kept every time she leaves is because it's like after a fight between her and like the father. So clearly there's some dysfunctionality in that family. We also find out that the mom's being abused by the father, clearly. And me and Rachel, we both think that the reason why she left, permanently, was because she just felt like helpless and like she just didn't know what to do, and like she didn't take her kids. But I don't know, I can't really make up an excuse for that. But I'm pretty sure Rachel thinks that.
She's gonna be like, why is she just talking to Rachel? Like,
It's fine, and I'm pretty sure Rachel just.
you can't do that.
What do you think?
I'm too.
What do you think?
Because of the fox little moment, the little conversation that Jody and Kaya have about the fox. Jody basically says that how the fox was, she was kind of, injured or whatever, and she couldn't really help or provide for her family. And so it just really made me think that maybe that's the same thing for the mother. Like maybe because she was being abused, there was a certain level of helplessness that set in for her that made her feel like, oh, like I need to get out and I need to help myself, and then maybe I'll come back and be better for my children or something. Or maybe she was like, oh, like I need to get out and like maybe my children have a better life without me. Like I'm helpless, I can't do anything for them.
Yeah, and also we are also introduced to like the dad, the mom. We found out she has two older sisters, and older brother Jody, but I'm not sure if we're introduced to her other older brother. But we definitely are in the next chapter, which is where we find out that Jody. This is your cue, Rachel.
Jody leaves.
Yeah, Jody left the family. Also, we also found out that every other sibling has left the family except for Kaya, and she felt really
abuse.
Yeah, and she felt really like upset about that and very confused because she always wondered like why wouldn't they just take her with them?
And I think that's where the theme of abandonment really set in for her and really sets in the book.
Like especially with like the fact that her father always leaves like for a long period of time, the mother always leaves, and now her siblings all left. Like
and she's so young.
like, yeah, it's like she just feels like she's constantly being abandoned, and yeah, like no one wants to take her with them. So it's like, how is a child supposed to feel about that? Anyways, we also found out the names of the characters in that chapter. So
yeah, there's Missy, Murph, Mandy, and Jody.
Yeah, so Kaya has 4 siblings, so there being 5 children in total. And then in the third chapter, we
also find out that Kaya and her father strike kind of a deal of sorts, where Kaya takes over all of like the household chores that the mother used to do, like cleaning the house, doing the dishes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in exchange for about $1 and maybe it was 50 cents. I'm not first time alone into kind of town, where she goes into this marketplace, and in town people, like, we find out that people are really hurtful towards people from the marsh, and they ridicule her by calling her insulting names such as like marsh girl and stuff, even at such a young age, and that's just really hurtful.
They're very discriminatory against like people who aren't like, because obviously coming from the marsh, she's not going to be like the most clean person. Like she's not going to look the most presentable. She's not going to, I don't know, she's not going to look like these like preppy little kids from the town. So they're very discriminatory against her because of that, even though she's just a child, but whatever. Anyways, third chapter. we are back on the Chase Andrews murder. Also, realize that like going through this chapter, we're bouncing back and like we're going through like we're going like forward in time and backwards in time. So going forward in time, third chapter goes forward in time, and we are back to the Chase Andrews case, and we are brought back to like where the two kids found his body, and they reported to the police station. The police station, they are kind of like suspecting whether or not he was murdered or if he fell from this tower. And that's kind of about it that happened in that chapter.
You said murdered or fell from this tower. It's murdered or committed suicide.
Yeah, he was either murdered or he committed suicide. So that's it for that chapter. Fourth chapter. A lady showed up to their house and she
tries to take her to school.
But she managed to do it because Kaya was sold with that chicken pie. She was sold.
Yeah, because she, at such a young age, even, you know, with that money, she doesn't understand. She doesn't really know how to cook. And so she's like hungry, right?
Yeah. And so basically here we learn that she was in the second grade. We also learned that swamp kids aren't like, they don't last long in the school system, which is obvious because people are very discriminatory against them. Also, we also find out that this girl, she has no type of education at all. So they told her to spell dog. She spelled God instead. And everyone laughed at her and she felt very
insulted and embarrassed.
She felt embarrassed. She felt very like she wasn't included. And yeah.
And then after that, we're taken to lunchtime where Kaya is, because of that situation, she's too embarrassed and nervous to eat around these people. And so she stuffs as much as she can, stuffs as much as the pot pie as she can in her mouth, and then she puts the rest in the milk carton. And then after that, after school, she goes home and she goes to her older brother's little like pirate treehouse or whatever, and she steps on a rusty nail. And in her little kid mind, because her brother said, tells her a story about, you know, his friend that got lockjaw because of it, because he didn't get like a tetanus shot. You know, she just takes that to heart really, and you know, she's paranoid that she's gonna get lockjaw, and there's nobody there to like help her and assure her anything, because as I mentioned before, she's alone. Like her whole family abandoned her. Even her father wasn't there, and she tried calling for help, but nobody was there, and that's just really sad to me. It just really says, you know, how alone she is, and really just sets in the theme of abandonment too.
Yeah, and then fifth chapter comes around. Back to the investigation. They find out that there's like no footprints, nothing, which is very suspicious because like if Chase Andrews came with a bunch of people, or let's say he came with a lady, there should have been footprints. There should have been like fingerprints, like all like steps in the mud, like there should have been all these things, and there wasn't. So it was like now it's like, how was this like? If people were there, there would have been stuff. So clearly he was alone, or someone knew how to cover up these tracks.
Because in this chapter, we also find out that maybe Chase Andrews wasn't as, you know, as good of a person as he was. You know, we find out that he used to cheat in his marriage and stuff. Exactly. So, yeah. And so it really like opens up for the possibility of murder, especially from like a spouse or something.
And sixth chapter, we find out, we didn't find out anything. We just see that Paul's gone. So Kaya decides to go on a little boat ride. And as she's going on this little boat ride, she sees Tate. She meets a little old Tate, okay? And her heart doesn't know how to react. Just goes.
Yeah, Tate is one of her older brother's friends.
Yeah, I think he's Jody's friend.
Mm-hmm. And basically, she's out in the ocean, and then, you know, once it gets late, you know, she gets lost, right? And so she goes up to Tate, and you know, she's really nervous. She doesn't really understand how to interact with people anymore because of the abandonment that she has gone through. She has lost her ability to really talk to people. Well, not really like lost her ability to talk to people, but she's kind of like forgotten how to like socialize, right? And so she basically goes up to him and is like, "Hey, I'm lost." And he's like, "Yeah, I remember you. You're like, Jody's little sibling." And he helps her and guides her back to her house, and yeah.
And we also find out a little bit about like Tate's life at home. He lives with his father, and I think he also goes out. So like I don't remember where he went, but he went out to this place. And then they were having dinner. They were having dinner, and they were having dinner, and they were talking about like poems and stuff. And I don't remember who it was that told him a poem, and they were like, "Oh, your mom always laughed about that." And then he scanned like then after that he scanned like the poetry book and he found this poem, which is the one that we read in class. We had the little worksheet on. I think of like the Lake of the Dismal Swamp, and he felt like that. Like when he read that, he thought about Kaya.
Oh, in chapter 7, Kaya tries to
Basically,
kind of have tries to take on kind of like a deeper relationship with her father because her father's like the only one there left with her, and she doesn't want to lose him because she doesn't want to be completely alone. And so she asks her father to take her on a fishing trip, right? And
because she cooked like this huge meal, and he was actually being really nice to her.
mhm.
And so
And it was like for the first time.
Yeah, she was gonna ask him for the boat, but she didn't want to know if he only cooked for that reason, just ask for something. So she was like, "Oh, can you take me fishing?" So he did, and she actually caught something, but she actually didn't want to catch something, but
because she doesn't really like because she's really into nature and she doesn't like killing.
But she was like, this fish is worth like
Oh, in chapter 7, Kaya tries to kind of tries to take on kind of like a deeper relationship with her father because her father's like the only one there left with her, and she doesn't want to lose him because she doesn't want to be completely alone. And so she asks her father to take her on a fishing trip, right? And
because she cooked like this huge meal, and he was actually being really nice to her.
And
it
was like for the first time.
Yeah, she was gonna ask him for the boat, but she didn't want to know if he only cooked for that reason, just ask for something. So she was like, "Oh, can you take me fishing?" So he did, and she actually caught something, but she actually didn't want to catch something, but
because she doesn't really like because she's really into nature and she doesn't like killing.
But she was like, this fish is worth like me and my father's like relationship, so it's fine.
Exactly.
I think this is where we find out. Is this where you meet Jumpin?
And then throughout this chapter, we also find out like there's also like this part where she.
Oh, we find out about the dad's life
In this chapter.
In chapter 7. They found out about her. We found out that the dad doesn't like to talk about their life, but then all of a sudden he just started talking about their life, and we actually found out that he had money, that he had land, that he was rich, but because
and we also find out about the mother's family, and I think that it was honestly very selfish of him to have taken his family away from taking his family and moved them to North Carolina when he could have stayed with the the mother's father and stayed in the business and stuff and actually have sustained the family instead of moving them out into the marsh and having them ridiculed about that.
Also, we found out that it was a depression. Okay, whatever. But they found out that there's no fingerprints, there's nothing there. But they also found out like that the time where like the timestamp where where he died, like they got that right, and they got negative data because like it was nothing new. Also, they went to the diner, and this is where people were talking about the death of this dude, and they were like, "Oh, but it could have been this one because he had an affair and blah blah." But then all of a sudden, they also brought out
Kaya. And I say that Kaya might have been because she was like they were like hanging out together and stuff.
But before they could even like really go into detail about her, they left the diner because they're like, "Oh, but we don't want to be influenced by this." So then 9, I think this is where we're introduced to Jumpin because that's the title of the chapter. But yeah, so this is where we meet Jumpin, where like I think the dad gets like his gas from there, his oil or whatever. Is it oil? Whatever. He gets his stuff from there.
No, it's gas. And here like Kaya and her father are really getting along too.
Yeah, they get really
And he took her out with him, which is not something that he regularly does. Which is kind of nice, they're having a father-daughter moment.
Oh yeah, this is where the mom sent the letter, and Kaya was like, "Oh my god!" But she didn't move it; like she just kept it in this like little
because she couldn't read.
Yeah, because she couldn't read, so she left it there, and like, but then she left it there, and like Then the dad came, ripped it up, like burned it, ripped it, like all this stuff, and just threw it in the trash. And then Kaya, she like picked the stuff out the trash and tried to like put it
Yeah,
together
because
to try to read it, but it was like
all
there
throughout
was
these
nothing really
chapters,
great.
all throughout these chapters, Kaya really has hope that her mother is going to return soon. I think she just doesn't want to accept that her mother left.
But they couldn't find anything except for like some animal tracks, so that's pretty much it.
And some shells
And
and stuff. And then
yeah,
on to chapter 11. Kaya is now 10 years old. And for
happened.
weeks, Kaya's father has stayed away from whiskey and, you know, all of this. Wait, wrong chapter. I'm sorry. Now we move on to
Okay,
chapter
11.
11. Kaya's now 10 years old, and Pa starts coming home less and less because of that incident with the letter. And, you know, it's been a couple weeks and he still hasn't returned home. And so Kaya doesn't have any money
Yeah,
or
so
any food.
this is where we see
She
her
has to start getting
motivation to like
resourceful.
really, yeah. So she's like been trying to like eat her food, like you know, kind of like in
Portion.
portions, yeah,
And
like
then
ration the money.
she has to start making money herself, right? And so she gets these ideas to get, what was it called? Like some like something along the
Mussels,
like, shoreline or
mussels.
something. Yeah, it was mussels. She collects mussels and she goes to jump in and she sells mussels for
Yeah,
gas
as long as
and just a few
yeah,
necessities.
it was like first come first serve. So it's like she was there at the right time and she would get money for it, which worked out for her pretty well because she got the stuff that she needed. But I don't know if this is not this one. She also didn't like the mussels that much, but she was like they weren't that bad in the grids. So let's see. Then the 12th chapter.
Also in this chapter, also in chapter 11, Kaya she kind of really like cements herself on the ideology like the marsh is all I have left. The marsh is all I have left. Like the marsh is my family now. Like everybody else abandoned me. Like the marsh is like all I have now.
Yeah. So then here we then like I think I'm just gonna skip to these chapters. I'm just gonna summarize the rest of the chapters. So basically, she goes to the she goes back to some mussels, but then he's like, sorry, I already got too many of them, so like I can't give you any money for this. And she was like, crap, like what am I gonna do? It's like the second week, like what am I gonna do? She has no money, so she decided to just start fishing and smoke them out and sell them. But he was like, okay, I'll give you a deal. If I'm able to sell these, I'll give you the money for it. Like I'll give you the profit. And she was like, okay, deal. But he went to Mabel, his wife, that which we were also introduced to, and he's like, I don't think these are probably gonna sell. So like, and the wife, I think the wife has like a lot of sympathy for Kaya, so she's like, oh,
especially because
like,
you know this book occurs in a time of racial segregation, and
yeah.
so you know, Jump In and his wife are they're African American, and so they're kind of said to be outsiders alongside Kaya in this book. And
Yeah,
I feel like because they both see each other as outsiders, you know, they kind of try and like help each they kind of try to help Kaya out a little bit because they understand what it feels like to be ridiculed and stuff by the community.
So they Mabel ended up getting a bunch of people to donate clothes and shoes to her, and Kaya was like super grateful for that, and like she continued to like I think she continued to get the fish to give it to him. And then also wasn't she like getting these gifts from like Tate, like the feathers and stuff, like these birds?
She started to get these bird feathers from Tate because he was trying to make a move.
Bird. Yeah, he was trying to make a move, and then he also gave her seeds and stuff, and he wrote a letter, but she couldn't read it clearly. And then
he also gave her like that part for like the boat. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a part,
a spark plug
for the boat.
And he pulled up and he was like, oh hey Kaya, like what's up? And she was really awkward because she didn't know how to talk to him, so she was like hello. And then but then she like just told him, she was like I couldn't read your note. And he was like yeah, I figured. So then he just told her what was in the note, and then he was like I'll teach you how to read. And yeah, so
then
like,
that starts their whole journey of him teaching her how to read, and then their
falling in love.
Relationship progresses. Yeah, and they basically fall in love and they become boyfriend and girlfriend, and you know they have a very tight-knit relationship.
Yeah, so I taught her how to read. She was super happy about that. She teaches herself like in the meantime when he's not there.
And we find out
that the services went to Jump In's house and Jumpin, like they were trying to get Kaya, but then Jumpin was like, I don't know. He kind of like put them away from her, and she was super happy about that. So then she had to like tell Tate like, oh, we can't study here anymore. Her
It
thighs.
was also the only person to like in like a long time to remember her birthday and to buy her a
Yeah.
cake and bring her presents and stuff, which I think is also
And
very important because like Tate is
yeah.
that person for her who's like she's never had this type of love and affection before, really, like to this level, and he's that for her.
He also made her heart feel. Sorry, guys. He also made her heart feel like super full. Now I feel like it's really funny because she doesn't feel that often. And when I was
That love.
she was really attracted to her breasts, her boobs. I mean, her breasts, her boobs, her breasts, and her thighs.
He was really just attracted to her.
Yeah, he was trying to get it on, but then he was like, I can't get her pregnant because that's gonna hurt her more than whatever than like me just not doing anything. So
at least he was self-aware that she was the woman, like she'd have to deal with the baby. But like also, would he just leave her with that baby?
No, I don't know because then they had to
that?
go to college. Because then in the chapter we find out that he's leaving, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
He leaves her, and she leaves her. He leaves her, and she gets like very
okay.
Okay, so another literary device is the comparison between the mom and the fox. As I've said earlier okay, so the comparison between the mom and the fox is very important because Jody says that how the fox left the mother because the fox wasn't adequate enough to care for the baby, to care for his children, right? And that kind of really I feel like it really connects with the mother because the mother was being abused and she couldn't really, be there for her children.
Anyways, wait. Who done it?
Who done did it?
Who done did it? Personally, me and Rachel, we both know the ending already because she spoiled it to me and because she already watched. Well, she didn't watch it.
You told me I could spoil it. Why try
I told her she could spoil it
when you weren't like willing to hear?
Okay, so
you wanted to know.
I told her she could spoil it. Yeah, because like it's fine. I prefer to know. And personally, I think it is really obvious that it's going to be Kaya because like.
No, I feel like we think it's really obvious because we know.
Well, yeah, but then I also
feel like now we could just like see all these like things and like put it together.
Well, yeah, but this is what's important. This is where we bring all these hints that people might not have realized. The fact that like my first hint was like the fact that like when the officers went to the diner and like these people were talking about all these people, but once Kai was brought up, guess what? They had to leave because they didn't want to spoil their investigation and be influenced. Why is it the second that Kaya is brought up?
I don't know. And then you also hear like about, I don't know if this like actually like, I don't know if this is like smart, but in the scene where they find like those seashells and like those like little rocks and stuff, I felt like it kind of was like maybe like kind of a foreshadowing too, because doesn't she really like those things, like the seashells and stuff? And I mean, it could just be there to be there, but maybe I'm just thinking too much into it. But
it could be.
It also could be like
Person, another hint is the fact that she was found in a swamp. I know she lives in a marsh, but like in a swamp, and like all the tracks are covered up. Like no one knows who it could be. Yet, like who would know the swamp like that to like be able to cover up all those tracks, know exactly like where to like maybe Kaya just knew like where to walk, where to do like these things, like where to place things to make it look like this is like he accidentally fell in.
And also, if I remember correctly, there was that they said that how it looked like a boat had been dragged in, maybe. Like I think there were like boat tracks or something.
Yeah, no, it was like this like little rock thing, but that was like already like disregarded because of like this other thing.
Okay, maybe I was disregarded, but like also maybe it could have been like
it could have been her because she likes the boat. So that's who we know did it. And yeah. That's the end of our podcast.
Hope you enjoyed.
Yeah.